Bit of a different setup today, but there are a lot of things about music that I don't know, and I always get so excited when I'm learning stuff. Specifically about music, because I remember when I was 14 or 15, I was already in a music school, and at the same time that I had to study math and history and like everything, I also had to play the piano and learn everything that had to do with music theory, and I was really, really good at it. I loved it. I was so excited to finish my math class and run into the music analysis class, right? So I would not go to my history classes to go and study the violin in an empty classroom alone. I sort of decided that I wanna invest my time into music, and everything else is gonna come to me. During my life, I will learn the basic things that you need to know as human, such as like politics and basic mathematical problems, or I don't know, anything essential. And of course, they don't teach you all the essential stuff at school, like how to do your taxes or the financial techniques that you need to use during your life to survive and stuff. So there are a lot of things that you need to learn by yourself, but when it comes to music, everything that anyone said instantly went into my brain. Now, this is just like an introduction, I guess, because I really want to share my thoughts and what I learn about music, and what I already have discussed with my friends and people during my life. And there are so many things that I constantly think about when I'm listening or analyzing or recently writing music as well. With one very, very strong topic being music elitism. It mostly means music for musicians, art for artists, which means that the final product will not be easily consumable by the average person, or it can may be consumable, but the full understanding will not be clear to the average person or someone that has nothing to do with art, which I guess you don't find that often in the pop music nowadays because it is accessible to everyone. And they're not like hidden germs in there that you have to know music to realize, right? It's just easy and it's made to do what it's doing. Anyway, I wanted to start this episode by clarifying that music is an art form, right? I think we can all agree to that. So today's metal scene has brought these thoughts back to me because of the whole this is metal, that's not metal. A shame when it comes to this genre for some reason. And I have one first little argument to that. What's wrong with not being a metalhead? Of course, there are so many benefits socially for me. You don't have to be a metalhead to, I don't know, be cool, be acceptable. What are you looking for when you're claiming that this is not metal, that's not metal? Yeah, maybe it's not fucking metal. Why do you care if this is not metal? It's okay. You can relax. It's fine. We're gonna be okay. It's still good music. We can have good music other than metal. And it's frustrating to me because I have this expression in my mind of people saying this is not metal with such arrogance and like snobism and elitism. If elitism was an expression, it would be that, disrespecting kind of you're not worth it look. And I'm not here obviously today to tell you what is metal and what is not. Maybe we can discuss this in another episode, but I want to dive into a little bit how elitism came to be what it is today. And it wasn't always like that, even though I do believe that everyone was judging everyone for everything at all times, because this is obvious. Like, you're a better hunter than me 1000 before Christ, right? You could eat more and be stronger. So yeah, I would judge, I don't know, someone that was weaker, whatever. I will start from the root here, or what I think is the root, or what I chose to be the root for this video, for this conversation, because obviously the root was like the Big Bang, right? But I'm not going there. I am going to choose another starting point, which for me would be criticism, because elitism wouldn't be here with us today if it wasn't for criticism. First, you had to have the critical thought to judge someone's actions and then be fucking snob about it. So music elitism wouldn't be elitism or snobism if it wasn't for judgment or criticism. Criticism began quite late, actually, when you think about humanity, around the 1800s. This is very general, but I am referring to the classical era. And this winds down into what was considered good and bad in music, with many centuries of use of Pythagoras' theories. And after the Renaissance, we have established a music system that we all follow. And so then musicians, philosophers, theorists, or anyone who actually had the opportunity to get involved with music and learn how to play music and how music works. We are at this point now after the Renaissance, where in the center of Europe, we are so used to some specific elements of music, elements in music. The idea that consonants are good and dissonances have to have a resolution, which I know it goes back to the overtone series, but that's something that is not happening today. We had the counterpoint on point, excellent work of the voice leading. We have polyphony, very common form in the Renaissance years. Also, we have even parts in a track, so balanced phrasing, equal lengths. So all of the above are setting the answer to is art subjective or objective to objective here, because there are so many rules that there are specific rules, not so many, well, they were many rules, and you had to follow these rules, right? So whether your piece, your performance was good or not, was based on facts. And not only if it sounds nice. And the reason behind that is because it wasn't consumed as an art piece. It was just consumed as something that you had to have when you go to church. You have to listen to this music and Lord's work or whatever. So if you were a musician back then, you would basically be critiqued by your skills to stay with the rules, to follow the rules, be a soldier of the rules. The rules rule, right? They weren't artists, no matter how amazing Vivaldi was, no matter how much I love Bach, he wasn't an artist. He was a worker, an amazing one, but he was just a worker. They didn't have the time to think how complicated it is. I'm not quite sure why they didn't come to the realization earlier in centuries that, you know what, this music thing is kind of dope. It's kind of difficult to do. His ears were developing to be these sensitive receivers of angelic intervals and greatness. But he wasn't considered the gifted artist that he was, just like we think Blixa Bargild is today. I don't know, David Bowie or someone that you like. Well respected and honored by the greater audience. Not just one little target group that goes to church, or today one little target group that goes to metal concerts. Like humanity. How did they think about artists? About musicians, I'm sorry, they weren't artists. Apparently. Anyway, jumping from the Renaissance to Baroque and then Classicism, things get a bit more serious, a bit more complicated. We have a lot more rules being established, and we have also a lot more people learning music, and the combinations of textures get more complicated too, because in the Renaissance we had an instrument and a voice, or many voices together. We didn't dare to do a lot of things. We started combining instruments together and forming small ensembles during the Baroque era. But with the classical era, we have so many different combinations that you can do, and obviously with the years, music became more accessible to the average person. So we had a lot more people involved in music and learning how to play, a lot more players, a lot of musicians, a lot more people who knew music. So a lot more people to be able to judge other musicians, other works. Also, another thing you might know, word traveled faster. So everyone was discussing who had the best oratorios, what was the best violin performer, who had the longer fingers, who made what deal with what devil. Being a musician around the classical era, it wasn't only about having your skills on point. This was always a requirement, and during the centuries, I guess this never left. You always had to have like δεξιότητα. Your technical level should be very high during all the centuries, but here you didn't only have to do that, you should have also a great sense of humor, and you had to express your correct political thoughts to be accepted by someone who would pay you to work for them. Classical era, I would say, was very strict. People wanted a way out, They started expanding harmony. We were following specific forms and rules, like we are being watched by a tyrant during the classical era. If you did anything differently, your work wouldn't be appreciated, wouldn't be shown to the public. You would never have success if you did something out of the ordinary. You had to follow the rules. The sonata form was the sonata form. Very, very few could do small alterations and still be in the game and considered good musicians and good composers. So it's only normal to get tired of that, to want to expand a little and be more open and, put a twist in there. Maybe use unorthodox chords in your music, and you claim, this is just like a minor with the first and the third note, and then I just added like a major 7 and a minor 9th, but you know what, I'm not gonna play the 9th, I'm just gonna play not the 11th, the 13th. Yes, that's just a dominant chord, it's nothing. Which I'm not sure if the dominant 13 was around during the classical era, but I'm sure that many weird chords started to bloom during the Romantic era. And the harmony was not the only thing that got expanded, it was the sense of rhythm as well, because with the forms of compositions that we had in the classical era, you had to be kind of always counting correctly, and there was very little room for the performer to slow things down a little and emphasize on a cadence a little longer. This also came with the Romantic era as well. Specifically, I would say in the pianists field. But anyway, this is the era where the composers get out of the basics. They get to explore. We have Liszt, who leads the game with Berlioz, Dvorak, or how you call this person, Schumann, his wife, Clara Schumann, like so many people that were lucky, and we are lucky that they were composers, but it's so great to have their imagination free. Well, not entirely, but they could do a lot more things than Mozart could do. Mozart was incredible with many things, but one of them was to stay in the rules 100%, but also generate ideas like ChatGPT right now, right? And if Mozart was in the next era, I don't know how this world would be right now. Maybe there are parallel universes where it happened. Do you believe in that? I don't, but maybe I'm wrong. These were very lucky composers. They got to impress, and they did it, and they stayed, and they made history. In the Romantic era, it wasn't about keeping the rhythm stable. No, it wasn't about staying inside the harmonic expectations of many or even the circle of fifths. Now it's all about pushing boundaries and creating atmosphere. Again, one thing that didn't go away was the skills. You still had to have high education and be able to perform anything, and your fingers should fly. But the thing that everyone was more focused on was the aesthetics. We even reached the point during the Romantic era, I believe in the latest parts of the Romantic era, that criticism was even critiqued, because maybe Etude number 1 made random guy 1 Tom cry, but then random guy 2 Jerry was picking his nose while listening. And the problem was both Tom and Jerry, they were involved and with the music industry, and their word mattered. So maybe the bigger opinion would be formed based on the opinion of few who knew. So maybe they knew music theory, or they knew to play some instruments, or maybe they were just friends with a musician that didn't like another musician. So I guess you also had to be kind of lucky. It is the same thing today as well. A very good band, a very good music track or video clip or piece of artwork can be found on YouTube with just 4 views or 4 million views. But who's to judge, right? The people who know, the people who are involved in the industry. A thing that I forgot to say with the criticism and all, and the establishment of music being an art form during the Romantic era, was just because it wasn't just about following the rules. I thought it was implied, but maybe I need to clarify that with music becoming a bit more intellectual and much thought was required to produce just a small piece of music, that it wasn't just to go, its purpose wasn't just to go and impress the other performers or the other technicians of music. It was just to go to a concert and make both Tom and Jerry cry, or it was to access a bit more people, and people understood that if Chopin wasn't slow in that specific bar, it wouldn't be the same. So expression, feelings, right? It's not just a woodsman. I wanted to clarify that. So I am now skipping the modern contemporary era. Maybe we can discuss that in another episode as well. But I want to get to the point where basically all of this, it comes down to whether you like what you're listening to or not, obviously, and you will always get to have your opinion, thankfully. But for the most part, what you get suggested on YouTube, on Spotify and everything doesn't even have to have only with the people in the industry. Obviously, connections make careers and everything, so that's why you know the bands that you know. Or maybe someone burned a church once and that was a big deal, so now you know that guy. Or maybe someone paid a lot of money to go and have a show with fires, and it was the first one that did it, so now you know them. So money is also really, really involved nowadays. But then again, if you do have money and you don't have connections, congratulations, you'll do nothing. I guess for a band to succeed today, they do have to have all of the elements. I guess the art element, the artistic part, they have to have the skills, obviously, the brains and the fingers to do that, or the voice or hands or whatever, the money and the connections. Maybe I'm missing something. I'm always open for discussion. And then even if you do have all of that, there is still one chance that one guy dated one of your exes. That big guy that knows your favorite band's manager's cousin or something. So there's still chance that you will get fucked. How fucked up is this, right? And it's not about just elitism or what I talked about in the beginning, but it's also how the industry kind of works right now. And if they do want to say your band sucks, they will, or your channel, or whatever. It was nice to take this all off my chest. I've been thinking about a lot of things that have to do with music for years now, and I have been talking about it, and there's still so many things to talk about music elitism, just that, right? And art for artists, and this is not just about music though, so it's a more general idea, but I'm all for artistic discussions and like share theories and opinions and whatever. Of course, obviously, I'm trying to be respectful, and if my opinion matters, I do want to be respectful to everyone. This was my first episode of talking about music. I don't know how I'm gonna call it yet. Thank you for listening or watching. See you soon.